Good afternoon, members. I know it's been a long day, and thank you for bearing with us as we've gone through it. Earlier in my opening, I mentioned first impressions and how Seaman Thomas did exactly the opposite of what you would hope for someone trying to make a good first impression. And I would ask that you analyze everything that you heard and saw today to come to a conclusion about those three questions that I first told you about at the beginning of this board. Do you believe the misconduct occurred? I think you can see from the evidence clearly that it did. Seaman Thomas, his story did not add up about ingesting cocaine. He said that the women were kissing up on him with white stuff on their face, and he didn't know what was going on. He denies patronizing a prostitute, even though in his NCIS investigation, he confirmed that he received special attention from one and paid her for her time because she spent time with him, but he was not paying for sex. I'd ask you to judge for yourself about whether or not you think that qualifies for patronizing a prostitute. I would argue that it does. Now, defense gave you a whole litany of excuses for why this really wasn't such a bad thing, why it might have been the ship's fault that somehow he ended up at midnight at a strip club. But let me remind you that when he called a cab at midnight by himself in the first time being in Spain, he said, "Take me to where the ladies are at." And yes, the cab took him to the club. It's not like he knew that Sala New Palace necessarily existed before he got there. But he had a choice at that point to say, hey, this is not a great place to go. I'm going to try to go somewhere else. When he had 1, 2, 3 drinks, at any of those points, he could have turned around. When he was taken back to the champagne room, offered cocaine, and then later sees women kissing up on him with white stuff on their mouth, he could have turned back. Judge for yourself about whether or not you actually believe his story. He's 24 years old. This is not a child. This is a grown adult who can make adult decisions. Now, Seaman Thomas also did tell you about a unfortunate childhood, and nothing that the government can say can denigrate that or undermine that. However, in the Navy, there are people from all different walks of life with all different backgrounds. And I would argue that you meet several who have similar backgrounds to Seaman Thomas, but they choose to leave the bar. They choose to do the right thing. Seaman Thomas did not. So when you look at all of this evidence, and you find that yes, the basis for misconduct did occur, he did ingest drugs, he did patronize a prostitute. Do you think this warrants separation? I believe it does. This is not behavior that is indicative of the Navy's core values. And then when you look at characterization of service, you have the Milker's Man that describes the characterizations of service in front of you. I urge you to go and read those descriptions. And I urge you to find that Seaman Thomas behaved in an other than honorable way. Thank you, members.